Whew. Could have been, I don't know. Good morning, everyone. Welcome to Community of Hope Church. So glad you're here. Yeah, that was an interesting question. Skunk? I don't know. A lot of animals, maybe. I don't know. I don't even know if skunk was like a part of it. But if I don't know you, my name's Rusty, one of the pastors here. Just glad you're here. We are in the fourth week of a series called The Full Story, and we are walking our way through the Bible, the complete Bible. We're going to do our best over the next year. We don't normally do kind of this verse-by-verse teaching, but it's really a good exercise to go through the whole story, help us kind of understand our part in the story. A lot of times the Bible can, get taken out of context and we kind of forget where we fit in. And really, it is about our story. Our story is to fit into his story, into the story of God. So today, we are going to cover a tremendous amount of ground, roughly 20 generations. So a lot. So if you don't know Adam, you know Adam and Eve, right? To Adam and Eve to Noah, there are 10 generations. From Noah to Abraham, there are 10 generations. That's 20, right? 20 generations. About 16, 17 chapters of Genesis. And this is roughly, we think, we don't know exactly, but historians believe if you look through the genealogy, because a lot of Genesis is just so-and-so begat so-and-so begat so-and-so, roughly 2,000 years. It'll go faster than you think. We've already done one service and they all got out and you're back in here. So it goes pretty quickly. Just to review, and I'm going to do this a lot so we can kind of connect the dots. We started week one with the book of Job, which many historians believe is the oldest text in the Bible. It's not where the story begins. That's Genesis. But Job is a story about a guy named Job. Very good. Remember where he lived? In the land of... Not Oz, Uz. He lived in the land of Uz. And Job had a great thing going. He was righteous and blameless before God. He had a lot of kids, threw a lot of parties, had a lot of animals. He was a farmer. He just had it all going. And you get to like the second chapter, I think, of Job, maybe the first chapter, and the story kind of breaks away to wherever God is. And he is meeting with his angels, and Satan shows up, and they make this cosmic wager. God makes a wager with Satan that Satan can break Job, that somehow he can break him. And God says, go ahead. Job is a good man. He won't break. And so all kinds of bad things happen to Job. He loses his kids, his farm, everything, finally his health. And Job throws a fit like all of us do, right? He pounds his hand on the table and wants to know why. Why do bad things happen to good people? I was blameless before you got. Why did this happen? And this goes on for chapter after chapter after chapter. And finally, God speaks. And, the opening line from God is, brace yourself like a man, Job. And when God says that to you, that's a scary thing. And so Job listens to God, and so eventually Job realizes something. And this point, I may make this every week because it's so important to the story. So important to the story of God, the story of the Bible, to your story. He realizes this. It's not about Job. At the end of the story, he realized, whoa, I've heard about you, God, but now I see you. He realizes, I'm not God. And I don't understand everything that's going on. And I don't get it. I can't comprehend it. I'm just Job, and God is in control, not me. And so when we usurp God, when we think it's all about us, we're going to have a word for that. It's called sin. Anytime we got to Genesis 3 last week. Remember, Genesis 1 and 2 is how we were created. We're created good. God speaks creation into existence, trees, planets, stars, dogs, birds, even skunks. And so everything's there, and it's beautifully, it's good. It's good. It's very good. And there's a hierarchy in the garden. There's God the Father, there's us, and then there's creation. And God gives us a job. Take care of creation. Look out over creation. and it's the way it's supposed to be. And I love that definition of creation. This is the way this harmony, this shalom is the Hebrew word. It's all there. God's there. We're there. Trees are there. Plants are there. Rivers, it's all there. And it's very, very good. And if you remember week 2, we actually looked at the end of the story. If you go to Revelation 21:22, that's the end of the Bible. And in 21:22, there is a new heaven and a new earth. And now instead of a garden, there is a city, but everything's there again. God's there, we're there, trees are there, rivers are there, animals are there, and it's all good. In between, this is the entire Bible, you have this big giant mess. But all of it is leading back to the way it's supposed to be. Genesis 3, the enemy tricks us and leads us to believe, and this is the lie, and we still fall for it today, all of us, that it's good, but it's not good enough. It's not good enough. And if you would just eat from the tree of knowledge of good, you'll be like God. And this is where sin kind of comes in. And we could all raise our hands and go, yep, I have disrupted the way it's supposed to be. I have stepped in. I have usurped God's understanding and his plan, because it's all about my preferences and my feelings and my desires. And if I were God, I could do it better, right? I mean, we don't say those words, but sometimes we feel like it. Like, if I were God, I wouldn't let this happen. I wouldn't let this happen. And anytime we step in to God's chair and disrupt creation, it's sin. And it all falls apart. And just like Job, we have to come to this conclusion, well, wait a minute, it's not about me. So Genesis 1:2, creation. Genesis 3, fall. Genesis 4, Cain and Abel, the first kids of Adam and Eve. If you know the story, are they're introduced to us. Cain kills Abel. And really, the world just kind of falls apart. I mean, it goes downhill very, very rapidly. Until we get to chapter 6. So chapter 5 is just a list of genealogy. If you want to read through it, it's so-and-so begat. That's how we kind of get the timeline. But we get to chapter 6, and we get to the story we all learned in Sunday school, Noah and the ark. You know the story? Unfortunately, the story we learned in Sunday school is not the whole story. My wife often jokes with me. She goes, I did Noah and the ark today. I'm like, oh, what'd you talk about? Animals? Boats? That's not what the Bible teaches us. So here we go. Genesis 6, verse 5. The Lord saw how great the wickedness of the human race had become on earth, and that every inclination of the thoughts of humans' hearts were only evil all the time. The Lord regretted he had made human beings on the earth, and his heart was deeply troubled. So the Lord said, I know what I'll do. I will wipe from the face of the earth the human race I've created. With them the animals, the birds, and the creatures that move along the ground, for I regret that I have made them. But Noah found favor in the eyes of the Lord. So God's plan, from the scriptures it seems like, I'm just going to do creation 2.0. Right? I'm going to wipe everything away, and I'll start over. Noah, who the story revolves around, found favor in the eyes of the Lord. 40 days, 40 nights, the rain comes. You know the story, builds the ark, it rains. 40 days, 40 nights, the ark floats. You know, they float around. Every living creature that moved on the land perished. Birds, livestock, animals, creatures that swam over the earth, all mankind. Everything on dry land that had breath in its life and its nostrils died. Every living thing on the face of the earth was wiped out. People, animals, creatures that move along the ground. Birds were wiped from the earth. Only Noah was left, and those with him in the ark. So everything is destroyed. Not a nice story. God's like, I'm going to just start over. And this is we're only in the 5th chapter of Genesis. The very beginning of the story. After 150 days, the floodwaters recede. Noah built an altar to the Lord, taking some of the clean animals. He sacrificed burnt offerings. And we're going to see this burnt offering, or this offering to God, play out over and over and over. The Lord smelled the pleasing aroma and said in his heart, never again will I curse the ground because of humans. Even though every inclination of the human heart is evil from childhood, I will never again destroy all living creatures as I have done. This is God's covenant with Noah. And we're talking about covenant today. This is what God says. This is what I'm going to do. I'm going to make a covenant with you. And God blessed Noah, saying to them, be fruitful and increase in number and fill the earth. Same thing he gave to Adam and Eve. only command we've ever kept, by the way. You'll never forget that. Be fruitful and multiply and increase in number. Then God said to Noah and his sons, I now establish my covenant with you. So God's saying, I'm going to covenant with you and every living creature with you. So it's not just with Noah, one man, for all men. It's for all the birds and the bats and the rats and the everything, every living creature, livestock, wild animals, all the animals that came out of the ark, every living creature on the earth. I will establish my covenant. Never again will life be destroyed by the waters of floods. Never again will there be a flood to destroy the earth. This is the sign of the covenant I'm making between me and you and every living creature. For you, a covenant for all generations to come. And we know the covenant? Noah gets what? A rainbow. You know that from Sunday school. He gets a rainbow. So God says, I'm going to place this rainbow in the sky, that I will never do this again. I won't do this again for you, Noah. Can you just be in creation, live in the shalom and in the harmony of God? The story of Noah ends in a very disturbing manner. Genesis 9:18 through 28. Basically, Noah is a farmer, so he begins to plant crops. He plants grapes, an orchard. He makes wine. He gets drunk, and he curses his sons. And Noah dies at 950 years old. The end of the story. That's how Noah ends. I really don't have any red bow to tie that up with. But what we're going to see is, and I was having a chat with someone after 9:30, this story plays out. It's going to become very redundant, by the way. God offers, we accept, we fail. God offers, we accept, we fail. Have you ever been a part of that story? Yeah, you're going to see that this story isn't a new one. It happens over and over and over. Chapter 10, we get another big long list of generations. Chapter 11, it's the story of the Tower of Babel. So the people are now building cities, and they build this big tower because they want to be like God. Here we go again. It's all about them, and if they could somehow get up there high enough, they could be like God. And then we get to chapter 12, the call of Abram, who eventually becomes Abraham. So we have, I've done a message where I've went through the entire Bible in one swoop, like 45 minutes, and I did all C's. So this is creation, chaos, calling, covenant. We're only to the fourth C. Creation, chaos, calling, covenant. So he makes a covenant with Noah, and now he calls one man to again play out the covenant. Lord said to Abram, go from your country, your people, and your father's household to the land I will show you. I will make you into a great nation, and I will bless you. And I will make your name great, and you will be a blessing, and I will bless those who bless you. And whoever curses you, I will curse. And all the people on earth will be blessed through you. And this is again a turning point in the story. This is a reset button in the story. It begins with us and God and everything in the way it's supposed to be. And then we have all this chaos and Noah. And now we have Abram, who's going to become Abraham. And God calls Abraham from one many. This is kind of a theme. He'll call one that plays out many. I'm going to bless you, Abraham. And what I want you to do is go be a blessing. Go and be a blessing. The story of Abraham is God's attempt to renew relationship, to restore creation, to bring things back to the way they're supposed to be. And he picks one man, and he says, go. Coveting, what does that mean to covenant with someone? It means it's I'm going to do this, you're going to do this. And this is what the first covenant is built on. God says, I will if you will. Okay? Abraham. I get this Abraham. He's going to become Abraham in a minute. I will if you will. And this covenant is built on blessing. Blessing. The Hebrew word barak, also baraka, means to bless. In some areas in the Bible, that same word means to kneel and bless. You may even think about it, I'm going to humble myself. If it means to kneel, I'm going to humble myself, and then I'm going to give to you maybe what you deserve, maybe what you don't deserve. I'm going to bless you. I'm going to give it to you freely. It's not mine anymore to keep. I'm going to give it to you. I was thinking about this word blessing of Jesus, who we're going to get to in a little while. When we first did this 10 years ago, I didn't allow us to jump ahead in the story. I'm going to jump ahead this time because it kind of helps bring it back in. So Jesus, he's born, and then, at 30 years old, he begins his ministry. And his first sermon is the Sermon on the Mount. And he opens it with, you remember what he opens it with? The Beatitudes, which means blessing. Blessed are the poor in spirit. Blessed are the meek. Blessed are those who mourn. He opens it with the blessing. So God says, I'm going to covenant with you, Abraham. I'm going to bless you. I will. And then I want you to go and bless others. Chapter 15, verse 1. After this, the word of the Lord came to Abraham in a vision. Do not be afraid, Abraham. I am your shield, your very great reward. But Abraham said, Lord, what can you give me? Here we go. Since I remain childless, and the one who will inherit my estate is Eliezer of Damascus. So Abram's already making it about who? About Abraham, right? Abram. And he said, you've given me no children, so my servant of my household will be my heir. The word of the Lord came to him, this man will not be your heir, but a son who is your own flesh and blood will be your heir. And he took him outside. He said, look at the sky and count the stars. If indeed you can count them, then he said, so shall your offspring be. Abram believed the Lord, and it was credited to him as righteousness. So Abram has a great moment here where he goes, I believe. I'm going to trust you, God. I believe. I believe you're going to do this. And God said, this is righteousness. So God says, Abram, I want you to have a sacrifice. And again, here's this nature of sacrifice. He gets a goat, a ram, a pigeon. He puts them on a fire, and creates this burnt offering. And he falls asleep, has a dream where he hears God tell him that, Abram, down the road, there's going to be 400 years of slavery, but eventually I will bring you out of slavery, and all this land and everything you have will be made right. But in 16, chapter later, Abram decides God's not working quite fast enough. And if Abram was God, he would already have a child by now, after all. He's gotten God's blessing, and so him and Sarai, who's going to become Sarah, they devise a plan that Sarai will bring Hagar, her maidservant, to Abram and as a surrogate mom. And you're with Sarai, or you're with Hagar, and then you'll have a child, and that's exactly what happens. They have a child named Ishmael who's going to play out down the road. So Abraham says, if I were God, I would make this happen a lot faster. And so that's what happens. And it's not until chapter 17 when Abram is 99 years old, so he's almost 100 years old, the Lord appeared to him and said, I am God. Walk before me faithfully and blameless. Then I will make my covenant between me and you will greatly increase your numbers. Abram